Welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Nick Tasso at the Inefficient 2. Taking a look at today's 9-game main slate, and you do have some pitching options, but overall, you don't have cores, so definitely a break from that, which is nice.
Yeah, I agree with you. Without cores, I think it's a little bit easier to make a lineup. You don't have to worry about missing out on some huge potential bats. So I kind of like this little 9-game slate.
Yeah, definitely. And this first one here, Blue Jays and Rays, Chris Archer taking on J.A. Happ. In terms of pitching here, J.A. Happ has actually ran into some trouble with the A's or with the Rays this year, and I don't know if I can quite use him in comparison to guys like Carlos Martinez, to you Darvish, Tehran. I mean, he just kind of sits as kind of one of the guys who's just off the table, even though it is a decent matchup.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. The Rays still have a few formidable bats from the right side of the lineup, so it is a little nervous for me to play Hap against Tampa. Plus, Hap hasn't really been that great lately, so I'm kind of shying away from that kind of in both formats.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you mentioned, some of those right-handed bats. I mean, Logan Forsythe, Longoria, certainly intriguing options. I mean, I know a couple other guys like Matt Duffy or Tim Beckham are going to get into the lineup. So I don't mind those guys. I think they're probably more GPP plays just because their prices are still around other guys I can trust maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. I'm definitely not playing a lot of cash from this game at all.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, I mean, Archer, there's some strikeout upside here. I mean, he's at home. Blue Jays offense does strike out quite a bit. But overall, I still think he's kind of this one where I'm not really looking to use Archer, and I'm not really looking to use Blue Jays either.
See, I could use him in GPPs, but definitely not in cash. I just think his upside for strikeouts against the Blue Jays is pretty high. So even if he were to give up a few runs like he's been typically doing, he still could kind of offset that with all the strikeouts he potentially will get.
Yeah, I definitely could see that too. And as far as Jay's bats, I mean, Archer can be a little bit home run prone at times, but usually in Tropicana he's not that bad. In terms of paying up for guys, I don't like it, but I don't mind the Russell Martin, the Troy Tulowitzki tier. I think that's kind of where I would probably get my exposure just because of the price.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have guys like that near the 3K range, you kind of not have to play them, but if they're in a good spot where they could hit a home run, I think you kind of have to definitely consider it.
Yeah, definitely. Cardinals and Reds next year, Tim Edelman versus Carlos Martinez. Carlos Martinez coming off a couple solid starts. For me, I think he's a nice swerve off of you, Darvish. I mean, a little bit cheaper in a decent spot there. Obviously a bad ballpark, but Martinez has pitched here well before, so I'm kind of in favor of him. He's borderline cash, but I just think you, Darvish, is just kind of that safe, only one option for cash games at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think this is more of a GPP kind of slate for starting pitchers, and even Martinez, even though he has been good, it's still a bad ballpark for him. But at the same time, look at the Cincinnati offense, and even though they kind of went off yesterday, they still sometimes have trouble.
Yeah, they definitely do. And I mean, some of those prices for those Reds bats are not too bad. I mean, Billy Hamilton, 2,900, Duvall, 31. Votto's a little expensive, but I don't mind. I mean, kind of, Votto and Hamilton, I think those guys are a little bit intriguing just because Martinez isn't great against lefties, but he's not bad either. He's kind of just more middle of the road. So you can kind of make a case for a low ownership tournament play there.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you. I don't think Martinez is a slam dunk on the slate because, like you said, Votto could do some damage, and they do have a few other guys in that lineup that could hit him hard. So it's not a safe thing, but I definitely don't mind in GPPs.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, I'm not looking to use Tim Edelman. This Cardinals offense, I mean, doesn't necessarily scare me, but it's just more Edelman really hasn't shown me anything that I like, and I actually like some of those lefty bats against him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. One of my favorite plays of the day actually is Brandon Moss. I know he's been terrible lately over the past week, but he still has a huge ISO against righties this year, and at that ballpark, he could definitely do some damage.
Yeah, I'm certainly with you. I mean, he's certainly one I'm looking at, and the price has dropped down a little bit. He was up a couple hundred more, but 3,600 is certainly reasonable for him in that ballpark. And also Matt Carpenter is a guy who I'm looking to use at second base. Kind of an intriguing swerve. I think he might go a little bit lower owned off of guys like Dozier, off of the guys like Odor who are in great spots as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think that price tag too on Carpenter, 4,100, will scare some people away as well.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as the righties go, I'm not the biggest fan, but I mean, Jed Jerko's absolutely been slamming the ball lately. I mean, 3,100, I can still get behind that, even though it is a righty on righty matchup there.
Absolutely. You look at Gyorko's splits this year, and he's absolutely murdered right-handed pitching. He's been terrible against lefties, which is weird, but against righties, he's just been so dominant. And I think 3,100, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think so too. And as far as that, I mean, Piscotty, I'm not really on. Molina, Molina, I know he's had a home run over the last whatever week or so, but never really a guy who gives you a ton of upside. He's just more of that one guy who gets on base once or twice. So as far as the rest of that lineup goes, I'm not really intrigued. I think it's just more that front three.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see it as a stack too, but other than that, there's not too many guys deeper in the lineup.
No. Yankees and Orioles next year, Wade Miley versus Michael Pineda. And in terms of the pitching, Wade Miley, I'm not looking to use here on FanDuel. I mean, there's a chance he can have a quality start against this Yankees offense that really is bad against lefties, but I don't think I'll take that risk here.
No, I'm actually staying away from both starters. You look at Miley, and like you said, he could have a good outing. Yankees bats have been a little bit quiet past few days, but they still have a lot of pop in there. You look at Sanchez and all the other guys that are still in there could do some huge damage against Miley. I'm really staying away from him there. And then you look at Pineda, and he's just a coin flip on most days. And you put him in this ballpark, and it could be a very bad outing for him.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you look at Pineda, he's extremely home run prone, so I really like these bats for upside in terms of Baltimore. I mean, guys like Mark Trumbo, Machado, Adam Jones. I mean, outside of Machado, the other two are reasonably priced. Even a Jonathan Scope at 3,200, I'll take a shot with, just
Yeah,
given that Pineda does struggle with righties.
yeah, absolutely. And the thing about Pineda too is, like you said, struggling with righties. He's given up most of his home runs against righties. So I definitely like all those guys, especially Trumbo and even Machado, because Machado has really destroyed right-handed pitching throughout his career.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, I mean, guys like Starlin Castro certainly intriguing. Um, outside of that, though, I mean, there aren't too many guys I'll look to use. I mean, Gary Sanchez, I think, is a little bit overpriced, but in a tournament, you can make a case for him. Um, it's not my favorite offense. I mean, this Yankees one is never one I really jump all over outside of maybe a couple of bats.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. About a week ago, they were red hot, but now they've kind of really fizzled out. So it's kind of just a fade for me at this point.
Yeah. Braves and Phillies next year. Julio Teheran versus Jake Thompson. Teheran at 8,400, I think, is the cheaper guy that I'll look to use in GPPs. 8,400, not a bad price against this Phillies offense that still is not good against right-handed pitching with a decent strikeout rate as well. And I would even have to imagine that the Braves will give him plenty of run support.
Oh, absolutely. Look at his opponent, Jake Thompson. He's been really awful his first five starts or so. His last start was a little bit better. He was actually able to go past the fifth inning, but I think against this Atlanta lineup, he definitely could struggle. And this is at Citizens Bank Park, which will definitely add some troubles for him.
Yeah, definitely would. I mean, home runs have been an issue, six through those first five starts. So, in that ballpark, I mean, I really like the Braves here. I mean, even some of the righties, I like Adonis Garcia, Matt Kemp. I think there is some upside there, and then obviously the lefties of Incayarte, Freeman, Markakis. I think they're all reasonably priced and stack worthy. I definitely think they are as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at Freeman. He's just been so good lately. He's one of my top first basemen for the slate. So I definitely like him there. And it's really hard to deny what Garcia did yesterday. And he's just been putting solid at-bats together. So I think it's okay to kind of play him as well, even though my issue is that he's at third base and there's a lot of other guys who I might want to play over him.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the reasons why maybe he goes a little bit lower owned, and maybe you kind of do fade away from using him out of the Braves lineup. But definitely a good spot for all those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I did play Garcia, I feel like I'd just be chasing home runs, which you
Yeah,
never want to do.
yeah. I'll even toss in a Tyler Flowers. I mean, he's actually hit righties not too badly this year, and a decent kind of value catching option.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of catchers you can get under 3K. So that's kind of my issue on Tyler Flowers. I think he's a little too overpriced for me.
As far as the Phillies go, I mean, I'm not really looking to use bats here. I mean, obviously Tehran does struggle a little bit with lefties, but I mean, these guys have just been kind of washed out for me. I mean, no reason to play him this deep into the year on this slate with all the other value that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sold that Teheran will have a great start because he also struggles away from Turner Field. But I kind of agree with you here. You look at this Phillies offense, and they really haven't shown much at all most of the season. And yeah, they could go off, but it's really small percentage that it might happen.
Yeah, definitely. Next game here, we got the Brewers and Pirates. Stephen Brawl versus Chase Anderson. I don't think I want a part of either of these arms. I mean, I know the Brewers bats have been ice cold of late. Pirates starting to get a little bit better, but yeah, I think these arms are just too weak for me to even consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. This is an easy fade here.
Yeah, and looking at the bats, I mean, you can make a case for a lot of kind of the value guys in this Brewers lineup against the lefty. I mean, Broxton, I mean, certainly a reasonable price for what he's done against lefties in a short period of time. Chris Carter with some upside, Hernan Perez. Obviously, Ryan Braun, Villar would be your more expensive options, but I actually don't mind them, and I think they're kind of going to get overlooked.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people just look at the ballpark and kind of fade this game here, but at the same time, in the ballpark, it's pretty huge. They could find a lot of base hits here or there inside the park, even if they don't go out. So that definitely helps your fantasy output. And I definitely agree with you. You look at some guys like Keon Broxton, and he's been really good, especially under 3K. So I definitely like him, and even Hernan Perez, 3,300.
Yeah, so certainly some viable options, and I think you're going to get them at single-digit ownership and in GVP. So I'd make a little maybe Brewer stack even.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see that working out.
In terms of the Pirates, I mean, you look at Chase Anderson. He is a reverse splits pitcher against righties, 357 WOBA, but going back to last year, 1.56 runs per nine. Andrew McCutchen, been very solid of late. I don't know. I mean, at that price tag, I might jump all over it. I mean, these Pirates prices really aren't that bad for facing a pretty weak arm.
Absolutely, I definitely agree with you. I could even see utilizing Marte, Polanco, and McCutcheon just because they're so cheap. It just kind of stinks because then you can't play any other outfielders. But other than that, I mean, that's a really good price for all three of those guys. And going up against Anderson, who a few of them have had success against, I think they're in a great spot here.
Yeah, I do too, and the prices really aren't killing you. I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, you could roll out that outfield stack. I think it'd be kind of a contrarian move because I do think they'll have some ownership to them, but probably just more in terms of just one-off guys.
Absolutely, I definitely agree with you. I think it's a little crazy to play all three outfield spots from the same team, especially in a ballpark like PNC.
Yeah. In terms of the other guys there, I mean, Josh Bell, I just don't like him that he's at first base in terms of value. I rather kind of pay up at that spot. But Josh Harrison, 2,800, going to get the same numbers that those other righties do. I mean, for a value second baseman, he could certainly be part of that kind of stack or could be part of that leadoff role where, he does get on. I mean, he does have some extra base hit power.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you there. And I really like his price tag, only 2,800. You can do a lot of things with him. And he just has a very good stolen base percentage that might happen. So I like him there as well.
Yeah. White Sox and Twins next year, Andrew Albers versus Anthony Renuado. This game may be my favorite just as a whole in terms of offense. I mean, both sides I'm really looking to use. So given you can tell, I mean, both these pitchers priced in the 5K range, that's kind of a major red flag.
Oh, absolutely. They're terrible. I mean, we've all seen Renato ever since he started making his major league career. He's just been pathetic, and Albers has not shown anything in his short time here. But at the same time, you look at this White Sox offense, who's been really terrible. I could see Albers having an okay outing, but my issue is I don't think he'll go more than 5 innings, and if he has no strikeouts, even if he doesn't give up any runs, it's really not worth it, even at that price.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, he could reasonably throw a quality start, but as you mentioned, if he doesn't go deep into games with no strikeouts, it's kind of an issue. I mean, you're forcing your bats would all just really have to hit huge. I mean, at every spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there are a few guys you could go with against them, like Frazier, who could do some damage in a Brave. But for the most part, this White Sox offense really hasn't shown too much.
No, they really have. And I mean, as far as righties go, I mean, Todd Frazier is the guy I'd be looking at. I mean, even a Tim Anderson at 3,100 is a reasonable option. Jose Abreu really hasn't had a lot of success against the lefties in his career. So, I mean, I think at the price, I'd rather kind of go up to Freeman or drop down and maybe go with a Moss.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. You look at a Braves splits and they're not too good, so that's definitely a good call, especially since his price is 3,800. I actually don't mind even playing Adam Eaton lefty on lefty, just because I don't think Alvarez will really last that long. Plus, Eaton's really held his own even against lefties, so I don't mind that play there.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the Twins, I mean, I really think most of these guys are going to be in play 1 through 6 for me. I think they all kind of serve some sort of purpose. Even the Joe Mauers, I mean, even guys like Jorge Polanco, if you want some value or want to build kind of a stack. But even Trevor Plouffe, I mean, Max Kepler, I think these guys are all viable high upside plays here, just because Renato is one of your poor right-handed pitchers.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't really looked in the numbers, but I doubt he's ever had a quality start. Like every time he pitches, he is just that terrible. So I definitely can see another full stack of the Twins. My issue is I really like Polanco, but I don't think I can play him on third base on FanDuel. He's definitely more manageable at shortstop on the other site.
Yeah, it definitely is. That shortstop eligibility does make him much more playable. And as you mentioned, because there are guys at third base in that range you'd rather play. Miguel Sano, obviously a high upside play at 3K. I mean, I think this just kind of sums up. Sure, there'll be a little bit boomer bust. I mean, these Twins bats really are, but it's really hard to see them kind of going completely quiet in this matchup.
Oh, absolutely. As we all saw, they're red hot yesterday, and I think they're definitely just going to continue that into today.
Yeah. Tigers and Royals next here. Edison Volquez versus Daniel Norris. As far as this series has gone, it hasn't been my favorite to really get involved in terms of pitching and hitting. I think that kind of goes today. I mean, in that ballpark, it's never anything tremendous as far as upside goes. In terms of taking shots for one-off power, your best bet would be with the Tigers, but I don't even like some of their prices for the matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was going through the games, this kind of just got lost in the mix, and there's really not a lot to like here. Kind of agree with you. You can do some one-offs, but most hitters really aren't in too good of a matchups. Everything's really volatile here. So to me, I'm probably just staying away from this game altogether.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the only one I might consider playing, but that's Lorenzo Cain, and he's been out of the lineup over the last few days. So if he finds his way back into the lineup, I'll give him a look because Cain does crush lefties and he's at a value price. But outside of that, I mean, Victor Martinez, JD Martinez, probably the only two I'll take a look at from the Tigers. But yeah, overall, I'm with you. It's just kind of those ones where I'm just glossing over and kind of focusing on some other games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could be talking to playing a guy like Paulo Orlando or even Jared Dyson just because they're pretty cheap. And Dyson, even though he's a lefty, does have potential for for stolen bases. And then you look at Orlando, and he has actually hit lefties pretty well this year.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, there are some cheap options, but overall, it's not the most appealing.
No, absolutely not.
Giants and Cubs next year. You got Johnny Cueto versus John Lackey. This game, I mean, in terms of offense, I'm not expecting a ton of just because of the pitching, but you can certainly make a case for some of these guys here. But I actually kind of like Cueto as a GPP all or nothing type play, just because his price is actually isn't that bad at 9,300.
No, I definitely agree with you there. To me, I view Suedo as a guy who's been pretty good in big games this year. He has had some clunkers, but I think overall he's been pretty good, especially when he's facing a decent offense. A few of his games recently sort of had blowups against San Diego, but that was just random. So who knows? But I agree with you here. I think Suedo's a nice price, and he's actually in a really good spot.
Yeah, it definitely is. And the Cubs, for me to kind of pick on Cueto with the guy like Chris Bryant and Rizzo, who are both over 3,500. If they were cheaper, I'd maybe drop them in a GPP, but I think those guys are overpriced.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of high-priced hitting options in this game right here, which is a little alarming when you look at the prices of the starting pitchers. Usually, it's not like this.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, you look at Lackey on the other side. I mean, he'd probably be the one I'd be, the most one to pick on. I mean, first start back from injury. I mean, he is a guy who has been solid. He hasn't really had a ton of blowups, but this year I guess you can make a case against him a little bit more. I don't mind the prices of Posey, Pence. I mean, even a Brandon Crawford from the left side at 2,900 is certainly reasonable.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree with you there. And one guy I overlooked would be Wilson Contreras for the Cubs. He's still a decent hitter, 3,000. I think at that catcher position, he offers a lot of value for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a guy with tremendous upside. I mean, he's actually, I mean, the guy probably not borderline cash game win this matchup, but I mean, he has been that kind of consistent guy who just gets on base.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and 3,000 is a very nice price for a catcher that he doesn't even catch most a lot of days, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So. Houston and Texas next year. You got Yu Darvish taking on Colin McHugh. I love Yu Darvish here today. He's one of those guys who does back up. If he does give up a couple of runs, he's going to get you that strikeout upside, and especially against this Houston offense that strikes out a ton. Um, in terms of upside on the slate and strikeouts, I think Yu Darvish is in the highest spot to do that, and he's also a big favorite there at home.
Oh, absolutely. I know the ballpark factor is against him here, but like you said, he has a nice matchup going up against Colin McHugh, who should get hit pretty hard. And Darvish, just that strikeout potential is so high. And then you put him against a Houston team that strikes out so much. There's just a lot to like here with Darvish. There is a little bit of concern because these Houston bats do have some pop and could take them deep, but I think 99 times out of 100, Darvish kind of takes them down.
Yeah, I definitely do too. There is some risk, and that's kind of where I like, where Darvish has that upside. Where say he does give up 300 runs or so. I mean, it's certainly possible. We've seen it happen in a few of his starts this year, but he has that 8-9 strikeout upside to kind of balance it out, and you're still sitting pretty well. And the price really isn't that bad. I mean, you can build in a lot of mid-range bats around him.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, too, he's in a really good spot for a win. You look at McHugh, even though he pitched well last outing, before that, he wasn't really too good. So I'm not concerned about the Rangers bats hitting McHugh hard here.
No, I'm not. I mean, I actually really like the Rangers bats. I mean, I like them as a stack, and you can make a case for really all these guys here. If Lucroy's in the lineup, I think he's one of the better catching options. I mean, McHugh's been hit hard really on both sides of the plate this year. So Beltran, Beltre, I mean, all those guys are certainly reasonable prices.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you still following the Carlos Gomez revenge tour? Do you think he has another good outing?
I don't mind him in GPPs. I'm not going to toss him. I mean, the McHugh matchup's really good for him. 2,600. I think he's worth a shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in terms of Houston, I mean, I wish they were priced down. Maybe I'd take a shot because I mean Darvish has given up a couple homers this season. Maybe I'd take a shot with the Correa or Springer, but I think those prices are just too high.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. It's just not something I like right now. You really can't justify paying those prices.
No, I definitely couldn't. So I'm just kind of staying away from the Astros side. They all have plenty of Darvish going on anyway.
Absolutely.
So that's going to wrap things up with the FanDuel Punch Out. Be sure to check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for our great tools and content.